Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Sisters podcast. This is Gabrielle Celeste. How's it going?
Hey guys, we have a treat for you today. We have a spiritual Ken with us. We don't get very many men, and it's so exciting when we do. So we have Philip from Ventus Healing here with us. I feel like we've been friends forever, even though we're just meeting.
Yeah,
on camera.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, meeting on camera, definitely.
Yeah.
And let me say that I really appreciate you guys coining the term spiritual Barbie and spiritual Ken. It really made me feel seen, and I appreciate that. I was like, oh, you guys are cool.
It's funny you said that. Aw. Well, you know, you're an OG of the show, OG listener, so I feel like this one's really special. Totally, because we know your wife, and shout out to the lovely Margaret. So we're definitely going to talk about that and the connection to spirituality and how she plays a role in your life. But it's so funny because I thought for the intro, I was like, you know, we should have like coined it instead of spiritual Barbies, like spiritual sisters. Like, why can't everyone be a sister, you know? But then I'm like, no, we have Kens too. So I appreciate you feeling appreciated and seen.
Yes.
We could have spiritual siblings, and then that just covers, you know, he, she, they. It covers everybody. So we could do that too.
Yeah.
I just, you know, I'm all out of ideas. Okay.
I think it works either way. I think you guys have done the Barbie and the Ken thing, so
you got to stick to it.
I think it's, yeah.
Well, you have been an OG, I think, since day one, and
close.
It
was a couple episodes in that I
That's pretty.
Okay. I had
we consider that
episode 8 is when I started listening. Like listening. And I haven't missed an episode since.
They were rough, regardless.
Oh gosh,
they were. You guys did good though.
Yeah, our audio, just everything was. Anyway, thank you for sticking with us.
Hey.
All these episodes later, and yeah, you had reached out to us, and because Gabby knows your wife, and it was just so cool. Like, oh my gosh, we have a male, and I know we have a few male listeners, not very many, but it's nice to know that they're there. So when we coined Spiritual Ken, I think I was thinking of the few male listeners that I know that we do have, yourself included. So you've been listening for a while. You know the games we play. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hit me.
All right. What are your big three, sir?
All right. I am a Taurus sun, an Aquarius moon, and a Leo rising.
Oh.
Man, tickled my throat there.
You know what? On the day of recording, it is my favorite / least favorite Leo's birthday.
All right,
those Leos. Yeah, but you know, we do share. Today is also some beautiful Leo ladies' birthdays. My sister-in-law and also one of our friends that we mentioned before, Lydia. So today's our actual birthday. On the day we're recording.
Happy birthday to
happy
everybody.
Belated by the time this comes out, except for that Leo male. Just the ladies.
He's probably not going to listen to this. But you know what?
He will.
Actually, you just met our dad, and our dad's a Leo rising, so and also a fellow mystic. So yeah.
Yep.
Leo risings ain't so bad. Leo sun for the men.
Yeah.
Questionable.
We'll let it slide. It's fine.
Yeah.
You're cool.
Yeah.
It must be the Taurus energy, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
It's the I mean, you're not the only ones that have had bad run-ins with Leos. I had an ex that was a Leo, and every time I heard Leo, before I was ever into any of this stuff, years ago, I always hated on Leos too. So it's you know,
it's valid, right?
Yeah. There is such a thing as an unaligned zodiac sign. You know, they bring on the worst qualities and they don't work on themselves, right?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Totally. Okay. And what is your human design?
All right. So this is where I'm going to take the cake for this one. You guys have never had one of me on. I am a manifester with a splenic authority, and I am a 3/6.
Yeah, we haven't had that. Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys remember these things? Those are so good.
Well,
good memories.
Just looked it up about 1,000 times on apps and stuff like that. So yeah. Oh, and I listen to a lot of podcasts about human design too.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Part of the story, part of the whole thing.
Okay. Oh gosh, I forgot. I know
Okay.
and so that led me into the question about the podcast. So I was going to ask you right now, what are some of the podcasts that you do listen to? So let's go there, and then what
I
am
got
I
the other two.
forgetting? Okay, you got the other two.
Yeah, I got the other two.
Okay.
Somebody always forgets.
I know. You would think by now, but
You'll get there. So podcasts, well, definitely you guys. You're the only one that I actually listen to religiously, like weekly.
yay.
Look forward to your
Thank you.
episodes.
Thanks.
Just feels very. It's like I know everybody says this. I know I've said it to you guys. It just feels like I'm having a conversation with my sisters, or I have a sister, and it's like I'm just talking to her. We're just shooting the shit, right?
Yeah.
So you guys, throughout my rabbit hole of a journey of healing and stuff like that, which I'm sure we'll get into, To Be Magnetic, or the expanded podcast with Lacey Phillips. She's the OG podcast that I started listening to, and I just consumed it over, I don't know, maybe a year and a half. From her, I found Jordan Younger, Balanced Blonde. And through her, I found Nikki Novo and Amy Belair. Yes, Queen Mother. You guys coined that term. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly her energy,
right?
But the one that I'm closely following, because I just came back from a hiatus, is Into the Multiverse with Ali Shaper, and they're all about mushrooms, pretty much, both psychedelic and functional mushrooms, and the benefits that they have on our health and wellness. And that's one I've been keeping a very, very close eye on. A lot of good information out there.
Do you listen to the Human Design podcast with Jenna? Well, it's out. Jenna Zoe. We still don't know.
The Human Design the one that I listened to was Emma Dunwoody.
Okay.
And her stuff. And I know about Jenna through both Expanded and
Balanced Blonde.
Emma Dunwoody.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And Balanced Blonde. Yeah, I feel like she's been on all the podcasts that I've listened to.
Yeah.
But,
okay, cool. Good ones. Okay, Gabs, you do the last. I remember I'm just forgetting like one question. I know the last one, but I'm forgetting one, and I don't know why. It's been a day, you guys.
We're gonna get into just all of the things, but if you could work with, like just a client, or even in like a collaboration, or like a circle of some sorts for any person living or dead, who would it be and why?
That is a tough one. I listen to the podcast. I know this question, and I always think, who would I read for? Who would I want to, maybe spend a day with, have a conversation with? And I'm blanking on the answer right now because I have so many people.
You can name three. Like, what are your top three? Did three come to mind?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so definitely I want to be a part of whatever Jesus and Mary Magdalene were doing when they were, when they're not accounted for in the Bible or whatever. I want to know what they were doing. I want to be a part of that, because I have a feeling that they were doing interesting things. Probably psychedelics have been throughout history a part of religion, just through and through. Who else? I think I would want to be in the same room with all of the OG people that I listen to and that I've learned from over the years. So Lacey Phillips, Jessica Gill, Jordan Younger, all of those people, I would just want to be in that same room and have them all talking and conversing and just witness that. That would be awesome to me.
Okay.
I love that answer.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to get in trouble now because Jesus probably doesn't like the fact that I just accused him of like doing drugs.
Oh, no, he'd probably be right there with it.
Just felt a little sacrilegious, but I feel like maybe true. So, we did talk about it that, right? Jesus was probably like Well, Andy Eaton said like a hot yogi, right? So he was probably like a hipster. So chances are, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And the last question. I don't know how I forgot that one. That was one I couldn't remember.
Do you want to ask, Nichole, or do you want me to ask?
No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. So if you could attend any concert for artist living or dead, who would it be and why?
Again, another question that I have about a billion answers for, but I always come back to one. And that is, I want to experience a Linkin Park concert again.
Ooh, I got chills. Yes.
Yeah. Just, I mean, I've been to maybe 4 of their concerts over the years, and I was not okay. I couldn't listen to Linkin Park or anything that Chester had done for 3 or 4 years after he passed.
Yeah.
And but yeah, I'm getting back into it. But yeah, I would want to experience another one of their concerts.
Good one. Yeah. Okay, thank you for playing.
My pleasure.
So, Bill, tell us a little bit about how you got into the work and all the things.
All right. Well, my spiritual awakening was facilitated by a healing journey. I had hit rock bottom. I got out of a job that was, abusive, and, I was tired. I had basically reached capacity, and I did not know what to do with myself. I was tired. I was, looking back, I can definitely say that I was depressed. I was anxious, not mentally good, right? And it got to a point where I was just dissatisfied with life. Not anything in particular, but just how I felt about myself, about the world, about, about who I was. It was almost like I didn't have an identity anymore because of all of the stuff that I had been through. So I was sitting in my car one day, and I was working at Starbucks, and it was before or after my shift, and I was like, you know what? This sucks. I want magic in my life. And I said those words not knowing what I was doing. I had no idea that, I would later on learn the power of words and how you speak your reality into being. So let me tell you, it was nothing short of magical. I will say that. It was some of the hardest stuff that I'd ever been through, and some of the greatest things that I have ever experienced in my life. So, and it didn't even start there. It takes time for the universe to answer your call, whatever you want. So it took about a year, and this is before, Margaret wasn't even on the radar for this stuff. I was consuming, I was learning about, paganism, witchcraft, anything I could get my hands on, religions, energy, Reiki was, it was kind of there. I knew what Reiki was, and I thought it very interesting. So I did a search for a podcast about Reiki because, I was driving back and forth. We were moving houses at the time. I had a lot of time to sit there and listen to podcasts. And the first one I listened to was an episode on Expanded Podcast. And I didn't even know, what Expanded was all about. It was just a random episode that I picked. But as I listened to that episode, I listened to, Lacey and Jessica, talking to this Reiki master guy. I don't even remember the guy's name. They started using, it was their rhetoric, their words for finding expanders and manifestation and where it comes from, subconscious mind and all that stuff. And it clicked. That was the bridge that I needed to go from a very logical, objective mind way of thinking, very masculine way, to the spiritual side of things. And after that, it was just downhill from there. And it was, jumped down the rabbit hole. I consumed so much of their podcast, and it got to a point where, I was listening to this stuff and I was trying to talk to Margaret about it. She was still kind of, on the side, like, okay, that's cool. Right. And she was in her own journey, with work and life. And in that time, about 1,000 things were going on. COVID hit, and then shortly after I did that, and yeah, that's how it all started. Wanting to heal, get to a point where I could recognize myself in the mirror.
I find it really interesting that the podcast that you found was another male that they were interviewing. Speaking about it, you said it was a male Reiki master, because I wonder if that was also more of a, just like more alignment for you to be like, oh, okay, because we talked about it before we started recording, that this field that, this world is dominated by women, right? And so I wonder if it had been a female Reiki master, not that it wouldn't have had value, but I wonder if it would have like clicked as much for you, like hearing it from a female, as it did hearing it from a male. And maybe it would have, but I don't know. I just kind of, I find that interesting.
I wanted to touch on that point too, because I also think it's really cool that you had the experience of finding that podcast and then leaning into the work. Whereas I find, and I've said this on previous shows before, males tend to have more of like an awakening by way of like physical experiences. So like extreme ways of like maybe using their bodies, like cold plunges or like Spartan races. And they find like that to be a spiritual experience for them. So for you to have gone the knowledge route and that be the initiation into this world, I really just want to point that out, that that's not something that I've heard as to be a frequent thing.
True. Thank you for that.
So you and Margaret were already together. So you guys kind of have gone through your journey together, where we've spoken about it before, where for my poor husband, like I like trapped him, and then I was like, hey, I'm going to get like really weird now. And like, you're stuck with me, or, versus someone like my sister who is already in the work. So when she meets somebody, it's like, okay, well, this is who I am. So you guys went through it kind of together. So tell us a little bit about what that was like, because that is, I love it that you guys are both on the same path. And tell them a little bit about what your wife does.
So Margaret, well, she's still corporate. She hates it. So you guys have talked about that on the podcast. It's very, very true, very relatable. I don't know how much I'm going to say. The more that I had to, because I was already in this stuff, I already knew what I believed. I had already come to the conclusion that energy is, real. Your thoughts create your reality, and belief is such an important thing, and intention and all that stuff. I was already a part of that, but I couldn't like force her. I couldn't like say, hey babe, you need to do this. I had to hold the space for her and let her come to these realizations on her own time. That kind of mirrors how we met and how we got together. So it's kind of interesting to say it like that, because I waited. Man, how long did I wait? I tell the story a lot. I waited 2.5, 3 years for her to be ready for a relationship, with me.
I waited 4 for my husband, and I had a baby in between there.
Nice.
This is true.
So he's like, you really were waiting for me. And I'm like, well, I just got bored.
Things happen in 4 years. But yeah, it got to a point where she was ready. And she has always been gifted, but she shut herself down. And that's all I'll say about her thing. But it got to a point where she was now curious about learning more about it. And I had, I knew of Nikki Novo I knew of Amy Belair with Third Eye Awakening. I knew of Expanded Podcast, TBM. She was looking for something, a class, something to do to teach her this stuff. And at the end, she ultimately decided to go with Nikki Novo. And that is how Gabby and my wife met.
Fun fact, Nichole, I think I can share this, right, Phil, about how Lindsay and her know each other. So
yes,
Lindsay and our spirit, the original, one of the original spiritual Barbies, I feel like we coined her that first. And then she, that's now what we call our little community members. But I don't know if they knew that they worked for the same company before they did the program together, right?
They realized after they had already done a couple classes that they worked at the same company.
Isn't that funny, Nichole? Yeah. So we'll have to have her on at some point when she's ready for that. But that's
I'm working on her.
Then I have done a circle with her as well, alongside the beautiful Angel Kelly, and she killed it. And so I really wanted to point out and just make a comment that I love that you, as the male figure, and it sounds like you actually have a really beautiful relationship to the feminine. So that'll be my question. But I love that you are the expander for your wife, because oftentimes it's the other way around, where the female counterpart is that for the spouse. So can you describe your relationship to the feminine, being a masculine figure yourself? Because I think there's really something there, because male mystics, I feel like they're few and far between. And if so, they're not out of the spiritual closet yet.
Right. Very true. Okay. So we all know men in society, and, what society teaches boys to be men very young, internalize everything, all of that stuff. I was always a very sensitive individual. Just to give you an example, my Venus is in Taurus. So love and compassion and things like that are very, very important to me. And I never was the type of person to force anything onto anybody. So I think that, and don't get me wrong, I'm still a dude. I still have those masculine traits that really annoy the feminine. I've worked on those over the years. I have a very patient partner with me to help me with that. But being a male mystic in a masculine world, I feel like it's more empowering for me now than viewing it 4 or 5 years ago, before I was, who I am today. I think for the divine masculine, we need to hold space for everybody, not just, the feminine, but for other males as well, to be able to be open and still in a masculine state. It's there's a time and a place. And I think that's the balance that really we all strive for throughout our lives. And in relationships and in friendships and in family dynamics as well. So.
Yeah. And I think so too, because the question about the masculine and the feminine piece, because like you said, you are still you still have a lot of masculine traits, and that annoy probably your wife or your sister or other women in your lives. Right.
Yeah.
But also, and I don't want to stereotype, but you have some men that are not very masculine presenting, that are, in the work and in the field. And it's oh yeah, totally makes sense, right? I'm thinking of the guys in the yoga pants, in the yoga studios, and that's not you. And you have a very deep, manly voice, a very strong male presence. So to have to kind of balance the two, where it's no, I can be tapped into both sides. Don't let this fool you. So I think that's like an interesting piece with just the way you present, because unfortunately we do sometimes get put into boxes, right?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, as a masculine thing to do is to, title things and give, compartmentalize or put things in like boxes and all over the place. It's what we do. That's how we manage our energy. We know where to put things. So it's just that structure, that masculine energy, but, and that's not inherently bad. There's, sometimes you need that structure and that routine and that type of energy to be, I don't know, successful or, whatnot. But I will say this, it is very easy to get stuck on one side and the other. You can get, as you can get stuck in your masculine energy and you're not, working with, your body, paying attention to your energy levels and all of that stuff. And then you can also get stuck in the feminine where you're not, you don't have the structure and the routine, and it's not, it doesn't really work out. So, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nichole.
I'm curious as to what your practices looked like when you first got into the work versus what your kind of practices are now, whether they're daily or weekly. Because you said you were researching like Reiki, and that's what you also do, right? You provide Reiki. Do you do any other types of?
No, not at the moment. So Reiki for me, I am a practitioner. I'm a level 2. Haven't quite gotten to my master's yet. That I feel like that's going to be in the future. But the benefit that Reiki provided for me was after I got my attunements, it basically cracked me open like an egg and forced me to deal with my shadow and deal with all of the stuff. So the whole point of me getting into all of this stuff was to heal myself and, deal with all of the stuff that I had internalized for, 20 years of my life that I did not know was affecting me. So it took listening to the Expanded podcast and them talking to I don't know if you've ever heard of Gabor Mate. He is he writes books. He's a doctor, but he talks about trauma and all and how it presents in your body and all of that stuff. That's just the surface of it. Brilliant man. It took listening to a couple of those podcasts to actually realize that I was traumatized, that I held so much in me and that it was affecting me because as society teaches men, just get over it, internalize it. No one's going to help you, yada, 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 the whole 9 yards. Right. So realizing that after, being attuned to Reiki was like, it basically forced me off the cliff and I had to deal with it. If I didn't deal with it, I don't think anything really bad would have happened, but I would not be at the place that I am now. So for Reiki, I will start doing it, but I don't really have a stable clientele, I should say, to keep up the practice. So that requires me to, do work on myself or work on Margaret. There's a couple places around town that I go to that do Reiki shares and things like that. So versus my practices now, it's a little bit less. I don't do it as much because I'm working on other things. I'm trying to get back into that masculine flow of, business and, providing and things like that.
Did you, excuse me, were you like told in the beginning that you needed to meditate? And was that kind of one of the things that you did a lot of in the beginning? And is it something you still do a lot of now, or did it kind of drop off?
It's difficult for me to do meditation because of I have GAD. So my mind is
Same.
a little chaotic, right? So it's very difficult to me to do meditations. But when I do feel like I can sit down for 15, 20 minutes, I will. And usually music helps me out. Very rhythmic, music, soft music in the background kind of helps me, dive in a little bit better.
Have you ever tried doing it with bilateral stimulation music?
No. I have heard of that. It's almost like EMDR, I'm assuming.
Kind of, yeah. So so it's just stimulating both sides, and you want to have it be a slower sounding stimulation. So where it's kind of panning from left to right, but slowly, because the fast one is where it's like the reprocessing, and that can be overwhelming. So you want it to just be nice and slow and easy. And I find that helps me relax when I'm trying to meditate. And sometimes it lets me sit a little bit longer when it's like nice, good music. And you can find it on like Spotify. They have some good playlists that you can look for.
Yeah, I will definitely try that.
So
let me know how it works.
You kind of spoke to this in your most recent answer, but what do you think the importance of more male mystics coming online is all about? And how do you think that can better serve the feminine, especially since most of those that live in their feminine are having a hard time and are operating out of their masculine, i.e. me and Nichole?
It's something that needs to happen. Yes, definitely. And I do believe that it's something that's going to happen because we all know that, anybody and everybody has gifts. They have abilities. They're all tapped in. They just don't know it. And I think for the male demographic in the space, once everyone starts to realize that it is a safe space, it's not, you don't have to be the woo woo. You don't have to be, all of that. If you're not comfortable with it, you can still be masculine and spiritual and gifted, right? I think the more that men come online for this, it's going to balance out the energy of everything, society, the world. It can only benefit people, and for people, for the feminine, especially once we start holding that space for everybody, really, it's just more balance and more love, more good energy that is going to be in the world. And I think that's a beautiful thing. The future, there's this saying that's going around because the future is femme or something like that. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I hear that, and I think, the future shouldn't be masculine or feminine. It should be divine in that sense. So
love that. That feels like a download. I'm like, that is profound. I love that. Brianna, pull that as a reel.
So do you have like in your world a lot of males or just any males that maybe were kind of thinking like, okay, what's this guy doing? And that kind of either don't understand or have said, oh, okay, like I see the good change and like I want a piece of that. Teach me. Like, what's been your experience with the males in your life?
Well, I don't have very many friends. I used to, in my younger years, I was very social, go out to clubs, bars, but no real like large groups of close friends. I have maybe one or two. I will say that it is difficult being on the other side because my best friend growing up, my brother, love him to death. He is Jehovah's Witness, and he, we've talked about religion over the years, and I never really adhered to any sort of religion. I stopped going to church when I was like 10 or 11. It just didn't feel right for me. It didn't make sense to me logically. And we can get into that if you want, but it's neither here nor there. What I have learned is some people are just not ready for that kind of space. It's not that they're not ready. It's sometimes that they just can't see you without, I don't know, without the blinders on. They have this lens that they see everything through, right? And that's perfectly okay. That is their world. They are, that's their thing. It's not for me to judge. It's not for me to, try and like force this stuff down their throat if it comes to that, because, I've had that done to me by other religions, right? It is difficult. I will simply say that.
I just had a thought. What if you like started a group, just like a small little community for other men, like-minded men, that because it might feel kind of lonely for other men, like, someone like you where you're like, I don't really have a lot of male friends, and not that, males need to have male friends, but you know what I mean? Just to have that like sense of community of like, okay, we share this like very common trait of being a man and being in this space. And sometimes it's kind of lonely. And sometimes maybe like we don't want to just talk to our partners or our sisters, right? Maybe we want to talk to someone else. Like, what if you were kind of like the leader of like a group?
You're doing the manifester thing. I see what you're doing. That's good. It's a good idea. I feel like, and this goes to what I've had my birth chart read by Gabby before, and I think you picked out that both me and Margaret are supposed to work with groups.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you go.
Just in general. So you are, Nichole, you are on the right track. And I feel like that is going to be a thing. Definitely.
Okay. What do you think you would need in order for you to get that going? Like, what do you think is holding you back from saying like, yes, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to do it now? What do you think is stopping you maybe?
Ooh. It's really nice that your therapist side is coming out.
I can't turn it off.
No, it needs to come out more. You're doing very, you have a very unique view that not very many other people do, especially in this kind of space.
She's an Aquarius rising, people.
I still don't know what that means.
I can kind of gather. Let's see. What would I need?
Because I wonder, is it a confidence thing? Is it are people going to show up? Like, just what do you think it is? I
think it is. It's that the show up part. Like, because I've looked for, groups and things like that. There's not really, like I said, there's not really many people in this space that do these kinds of things. And then, if I post something, who's going to show up, right? I am working on that. So I like to think that I collect people and places. Like, basically, I know all of the places in the city that I live in that are, the witch shops, the esoteric places, the crystal shops, the things like that. So I know all of these little things, which is why I started building a website for all of my people and all of my things and all of my knowledge and all of my viewpoints. I am hoping that website is going to bring about things like the groups and the meetings and things like that.
How are you going to drive people to that website in order for them to then get informed and involved in your group if it's something that you do?
Definitely social media. Definitely podcasts.
For all the males listening, this is why I'm asking.
Yeah. I don't know for sure how I'm going to do it. But I know that it's going to happen. So I've leaned in, and I kind of have that faith to just do it, and it's going to work out. I feel like it's just waiting to come in. It's circling, and yeah, I just need to do stuff.
That's trust and surrender. That's very feminine in that way.
Yeah,
and the masculine's the doing. So I love that.
Yep.
Oh, I feel like I struggle with both. Like I don't trust and surrender.
It's a safety thing.
Sometimes the doing is like, fuck, this is like too much.
Well, sometimes you surrender and you don't actually know it. Like you don't know that's what you did. Like when I said I want magic in my life, I didn't know that's what I was doing. I had no idea.
Okay, so let's go back to that. What was one of the first experiences that you said, oh my gosh, this is the magic that I asked for, or even question like, is this magic? Like just what were some of the things that kind of tipped you off?
Like I said, it took a while for things to start happening, right? Mm-hmm. It started very slowly. So like I said, with the podcasts and things like that, the more that I learned, the more that I believed that these things were possible, the synchronicity started. See numbers, things like that. And they still happen, to this day, all the synchronicities that you pay attention to. You see, like, here's a prime example. I met a woman at my work. No, I told her the story. So yes, called out. It was just like an interaction with a customer at my job, right? So she was, my coworker was walking around with a t-shirt on that was from where I work. And the customer liked that shirt. And she asked if we had a certain size because it was on clearance. They weren't going to have that. And I had that shirt in the back in my basket, that size. And the hour before I talked to her, I had put that shirt back onto the clearance rack, like in the back, right? And she asked for it. And I was like, because it was too small for me, because it would have shrunk, I couldn't, have that. So I had already made the decision that I wasn't going to buy this t-shirt and that it was going to go back on the shelf. Walk outside. She asked for the shirt. And I was like, wait, we have one left. Let me go get it for you. And she thanked me. And I was like, you know what? This was meant to be because I was going to buy this. But I decided not to just, 30 minutes ago. And I was like, so it was meant to be. And she looks at me and she was like, that's crazy because I have a social media platform that documents my mold, toxicity journey and healing and all that stuff. It's called Meant to Be.
Oh my gosh.
So, and I was like, okay, thank you, universe, for that.
I love that. That's so cool.
So, yeah, a lot of just things happened the way that they're supposed to happen. And this is another story about the power of words. And this goes back to me leaving, not wanting to go to church anymore as a kid. So whenever somebody would ask me, hey, are you Christian? Are you blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, you know what? I guess I am, but I don't feel the need to go to church. If God needs me, he'll put me where I'm supposed to be. He'll put me where I need to be, something along those words. And that is another form of surrender because I had already done it. The universe has just been guiding me along the way. And now I'm here. So.
Yeah. Okay.
I love that. And it actually reminds me a lot of like our dad, because our dad's really good at not controlling living amongst many women who are the complete opposite. And
complete opposite.
complete opposite. Leo rising, Virgo sun, but he's one of the holiest people that I know, and so I'm almost fascinated by like your type and his type, because I'm like, how it just how to get there, especially as I'm like transitioning from the masculine and operating from the masculine to the feminine. And so it really just feels like, and what I'm hearing is like doing a lot of like nothing and just releasing and letting go is really just the magic answer and the secret sauce to bringing in those manifestations and doing the shadow work alongside that, of course.
But how do you do nothing? Yep. That's so hard.
It is hard. It is hard.
Yep. Tell that to Margaret. She would agree with you.
Yeah, no, I can't. I'm still trying to figure out how to do nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe one day we'll get there. I know I had another question for you and I didn't write it down.
Maybe it'll come back in the last couple minutes as we close up.
I know. Do you have a question, Gab? It was like, I think it was a good one. I mean, I always think they're good, but they're not.
They're all good questions you're talking about. There was something coming up for me with respect to, and I don't know that it's more of a question, it's more like a statement, but the word that popped in my mind as you were speaking was the safety and the feeling of being safe, so that you can lean into the feminine and not always feel like you have to go, but also safety that is in union with like being able to release and to not control. And I would love to know like what your thoughts are on the theme of safety, especially as a man in this world, as a male mystic as well. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay. Let me see. All right. So what's coming up for me? Safety is something we all need. It's the root chakra. It is your ego. Your ego is there to, keep you safe, survival instincts, things like that. It can also keep you very stuck, very, very, operating in fight or flight, things like that. Things that are obviously not the best thing for you all the time. It's there when you need it. You could also mirror your ego with your shadow, because that's, your shadow work is basically just dealing with your ego and integrating your shadow into who you really are. Safety for me growing up was very difficult because I have type 1 diabetes. Money has always been connected to my safety and my survival. And it has definitely affected and informed my life. The more safe you are, it's definitely easier for you to feel into, the energy and the flow, and, turn self-awareness, you become more aware of your things and you're able to release things. So you are definitely right. It is an important thing. But the root chakra, obviously, is your foundation. If you don't have a solid foundation, you are just disconnected from Earth, universe, everything. And that has been the front and foremost of my healing journey, to be honest.
I think I remembered my questions.
Really well said. Thank you for that.
Sure. I love that you're kind of talking about the root chakra and that being like the foundation of safety, because I mean, like years later, I feel like I'm still working on my root chakra, right? Because healing is like a journey, right? It's not a destination. It's not like okay, are you healed now from the work that you started healing from 5 years ago? Well, no, but I'm getting better, right? It's just, it doesn't go away. It just, you move on from one issue to the next. And I was thinking about that as you said it, because growing up, oh my God, like just so unsafe, so unstable. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the health issues like you mentioned with like your type 1 diabetes, but like, I was raised by like a single mom who was like unavailable, not present, like I was homeless, it was just like, it was awful. And I think about like, oh my gosh, I hope my son doesn't grow up with these like root issues, these like root chakra issues, because I do try so hard to make him feel safe and like not have to worry about, oh my gosh, we got evicted, or you know what I mean? Just like being very like cognizant of that. So thank you for that. But just a random thought I had when you were talking about it. So you mentioned that you can't really like meditate, which same. So do you find that you get maybe or I guess like where's the bulk of like the work coming from for you for the healing? Because I know that lately I have really gotten the most healing and most benefit from doing really good journal prompts. So you mentioned Expanded. Did you ever do any of their work, like any of the workshops on the app or anything?
Not a single thing. I have not touched their work. I really wanted to, but as with, money and things like that, I feel like that might be something in the future. But I think there's other work that I would want to do.
Okay. Yeah. So but even there, it's not so much about like, oh, I want to manifest this new job. Like it really just gets deep into the shit. So that's a really good place to start. And I think I got it. I pay like $22 a month for the app. I haven't touched it in a while, but it's not pricey, and you kind of like go along on your own timeline. But anyway, so I have found that maybe journal prompts have been even like more effective than therapy. So do you do any kind of like journaling, or like how are you really working towards your own personal healing now?
I'm really glad that you asked this. Becoming extremely self-aware of your internal world. I am a recovering neurotic person. Growing up, everything was negative. The words that came out of my mouth were negative. So I'm getting better. I've gotten better. And that the only way that I, got to this point was having the support of, friends, family, and also therapy. Doing shadow work, is not an easy thing. And I do not recommend that you do it alone. You're not meant to do it alone because, the saying, it takes a village, it really does, because, you can look at something about yourself and think it's the absolute worst thing in the world. And that might not be true. It 9 times out of 10 isn't true. It's just, I was offered a lot of different perspectives from my therapist. And that has helped me so much just in the past year and a half. So one, the safety to be able to release these things, to feel into your emotions and let them go, because you're not supposed to hold them in your body. 2, things like journal prompts, therapy, self-awareness, right? And 3, not doing it alone. Yeah. Hands down.
Okay. In 30 seconds, what advice would you give other men? Go. That are on this journey, or that are like, I need to heal. I don't know. That's just sounds. There's so many women, and just whatever nonsense they might be thinking. What would you tell them?
Don't worry about it. You do you, and the right people will show up for you in the end.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good one.
Love it. All right, Phil, thank you for joining us. Can you tell our friends, the Spiritual Barbies and Kens, where they can find you? And then would you be so kind as to do a card pull for us to close us out?
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. Social media, I don't post as much. I probably should, but it is just Ventus Healing on Instagram. That's kind of what I'm primarily doing right now. And at time of recording, the website is not finished. I am still working on that. but it is going to be ventushealing.com.
And can you tell them what Ventus was again?
Oh, Ventus. Ventus is just Latin for wind or air.
Yeah. Is Taurus an air sign? Is that why? No, it's an earth sign, right?
Aquarius is an air sign. Yeah, Taurus is earth. Yeah.
Okay. What made you decide on that name?
It was just a moniker. I had always been drawn to the air symbol, and I played a lot of video games, and it's always just kind of been in my name that I've used throughout my gaming history. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Mm-hmm. And what tarot deck are you going to use?
All right. So my first tarot deck is The Dreams of Gaia.
Ooh. Oh.
Yeah. So this one does not follow the traditional Rider-Waite setting. It adds a few more cards to the major arcana and changes the suites to the elements. So fire, air, earth, water. But the artwork is amazing. This woman is extremely talented. Who made it?
So wondering, as you're doing that, are card pools or like the decks part of your kind of daily practice or weekly? Like, is it something that you use often?
It is. I do a little card reading, here and there when I feel called to. I don't force myself to do the full, routine. I have to pull a card every day or anything like that. My energy as a manifester, I don't have a lot of, so I have to be very choosy on how I go throughout my days. So I'm very envious of you generators and mani-gens who are boundless energy and can get in complete tasks.
No, it's exhausting. It is so exhausting. I don't wish it on anybody. Right. They're all showing up to the podcast.
That's true. Mm-hmm. We do have a lot of mani-gens on.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Have you had a projector? I think you had a projector.
Yeah, we've had a couple.
We just haven't had the reflector, right? The one that's the 1%.
When Jordan Younger, gets out of her maternity stuff because she just had her baby, I believe.
Like a month ago or something.
Call her in.
I feel like we could pull her
very recently. She's amazing. Her whole story is.
It's wild.
It's inspiring, to be honest.
Totally. Not opposed to it.
We have pulled card 29, which is emotions.
Okay.
So
what's coming up for you?
Emotions, at least in the book. Oh, and it also came reverse. So what it feels like to me is, I think it goes back to what I was saying about the, feeling the safety to work on your shadow and integrate your shadow. Yeah, it's okay. It's not anything to be afraid of. Your shadow is not there to hurt you. It's not there to keep you down. It's there to keep you safe. But the more that we integrate our shadow on that front, the closer we are to becoming our true, authentic self, right? So don't fear the darkness. Don't fear, something coming to get you. The saying, this is perfect because I've been thinking about this for a while. So the saying where you stare into the abyss and the abyss stares back at you. No, it's just your shadow. It's you staring at you.
Ooh.
And you needing to work on those things and bring you closer to you. Because you can stand on the fence between light and dark, but you're still two parts of the same highly evolved person, right? So that's what I believe this card reversed.
Okay. I need to learn tarot.
It's fun.
I still struggle with it so much. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you for wanting to come on. Thank you to our friend Brett, who kind of encouraged you, or like you were like, I heard Brett on today, and I just figured like it's time, and I was like, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for those other males that are listening, let us know.
He lit that fire, definitely.
Mm-hmm. We love him.
Well, thank you for having me on. It is an honor to be on the podcast and talk to you ladies. Yeah.
Thank you for listening and being an OG writer.
No problem. Look forward to many more years of you guys doing this podcast.
Aww. Okay, we'll share this with the people that you know, because we need to get a certain number in mind, or we quit. Gotcha. Right? You heard that, right? We were threatening. I
did hear that. I was quite upset. That's why I'm manifesting this. I'm telling you guys,
love it.
You need to stay on and you need to grow. So yeah, you've got a couple more years in you guys. I can tell.
Aw, thank you for saying that. Received. And I think we will. Do you want to say bye with us?
Why would I not want to? Come on.
Like, oh my gosh, we need that like deep baritone like bye to match our high pitchness.
All right. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Count us out.
Okay, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.